Hi there. In this test in Memsource, I want to do something crazy and I want to try translating a document with no translation memory attached. As you see here, there's no TM, and I want to try the results first with a regular MT engine with glossary attached. And Memsource has this new Memsource Translate feature where you can basically just hook it up to a regular machine translation engine and attach your own glossary. And let's have a quick look here. So here it is. As you see, I'm choosing Google Translate as the engine. It's not such a big choice. I would like to have DeepL, but it's not available yet. While it is possible to use DeepL as a general MT engine, I'm going to try that later. I can also use a Google AutoML MT. Oh, that's cool. Let's try that. Okay, so I'm going to do that. And I can attach my own glossary, which I've uploaded here. It has 743 terms, so that should cover most of the stuff that requires a lot of research and manual validation. Google AutoML is a custom model that I trained myself using TMs for this particular university. So it should do the corporate language pretty well, but it does not recognize all the terms on its own. So I'm attaching this MT glossary on top. So let's try this. I have uploaded a test file with a couple of sentences from a examination regulations document, which are usually very term dense, and they're very high touch. They usually require a lot of manual effort and don't even work that well with MT for various reasons. I'm going to get into that later. So let's pre-translate this file, pre-translate non-translatables, pre-translate from machine translation. I have my machine translation attached. I have the right machine translation running, so let's go. Okay, so I have the file pre-translated. Let's run it, have a look, let's see what happens. So this is the machine translation. And as you can see here, it should inject all the terms that I have here. I want to quickly combine the segment because this is only one sentence. J, 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 and so on. So this is a whole sentence. Okay, and now you can see it should inject blah, blah, blah. I'm just going to check for the term injection first. I'm not going to check if this makes any sense, but let's hope it does. On the basis of section 2. So section is something I have defined actually in the glossary, but for some reason it might not have worked. I'm going to take a quick look at my glossary so we can compare what terms I have defined here. As you see here, I entered this. It's not being injected for some reason. Anyhow, because this is a lot of effort, you know, if you have like section should be translated as section or a symbol or whatever, and MTs, if you don't give them any rules, will not translate this consistently. So one time they're going to give you section or whatever. Section 64 of the Act on Universities of the State of Higher Education. So you see here, this has not been injected, but the reason is that I have used the short form Higher Education Act. So this has not been injected in the version published on 16 September 2014. So here, the date format, I think, is something that it has pulled from the from my trained ML model, because normally it could get confused. See here, no, it's not being, the date format is not consistent. So that's a problem. That's something you could only do theoretically with custom MT if you feed it with a TM that always uses the same date format. But here you see it did not work. last amended by Article 1 of the Act to amend the Higher Education Act. So this is not defined. So this is something we would now have to validate manually. Gesetz zur Änderung der Hochschulgesetzes, blah, blah, blah. I would have to open a new tab and look it up and see if this is actually the English name. If it doesn't have an English name, I would have to invent one. The Department of Economics. So the Department of Economics is not defined in the glossary. Okay, at the Rüders. So this is something also that will require manual validation because the English name of this Wirtschaftswissenschaften department will be different at every university. Campus of the Brandenburg University of Technology, Cottbus-Senftenberg. This is also something I have defined here. I don't know why it's not being pulled. Yeah, I put the term in the glossary, but it's not being pulled yet for some reason. Okay, so let's ignore this. Has issued the following master's examination regulations for the business administration program. So here it did not inject the right term because it's supposed to be business management and not administration. And as you can see, more or less, the syntax of the sentence and everything is okay, but what's going to be a lot of work for the translator is like validating all the names of these departments and the university and the laws and ensuring that the format is correct. So that's going to be the bulk of the work here and not actually writing the sentence. So, aim of the course. Yeah, Studium is also not defined. Could work, could not work. Purpose of the examination, academic degree. It's not injecting the terminology that I want. The course aims to provide in-depth comparative. So this is like a typical nonsensical administrative language sentence for academic language sentence, which, however, does not have a high term density. But let's see. A human translation would be much nicer here because you don't, even in German, you don't know what they're trying to say. But let's look at the machine translation. Could you leave it like this? The course aims to provide in-depth comparative, scientific, and practice-oriented knowledge of concepts, methods, and techniques of general management with a focus on strategic and functional operative issues, taking into account the general objectives of the course. More or less, you would not need to touch this sentence. It's not pretty. The source is not pretty. The target is not pretty, but it's not going to lead to any big misunderstandings because this is like a mission statement. This is blah, buzzwords. I will show you other locations where it makes more sense to invest the manual effort. So leave this as it is. Confirm. Empty, empty, empty. So the students should be qualified to develop them further. So them, there's no context here because the MT does not understand what them is referring to. So you will have to, this is something you need to touch using these skills. Yeah, productively, not profitably would make more sense. In the analysis of solution of strategic problems in national and international practice. Yeah, this is more or less, you can leave it. So this is also a low touch sentence. Don't invest your effort here. Studienvoraussetzungen, study requirements. Okay, leave it as. Or, yeah, normally it would be admission requirements would make more sense here. But this is something you need to define in the. You see here, there's no term defined, so don't expect that the human is going to bring any better suggestions than the MT in this case. If an applicant is finally, so this is here we see there's a lot of more TM hits, so term-based hits, so let's look, it might get more interesting. If an applicant has finally filled an examination required under the examination regulations in the chosen course of study, yeah, see, so we want this to be degree program. at the university within the scope of the basic law, or if she has lost the right to an examination for any other reason, enrollment for this course is excluded. Problematic. So this is impersonal language. This student may not enroll for this course. So this is something you need to touch all the time. This is a source language quality issue. The student, because it's impersonal. Here ist eine Einschreibung für diesen Studiengang ausgeschlossen. What they mean to say is, kann sich diese studierenden Bewerberin or whatever nicht für diesen Studiengang einschreiben. So it's not mentioning the, there's no subject or there is a subject and object, but there is no agent here. So this is problematic and will always lead to MT issues and then to issues of understanding. This is just a small example though. If an applicant has finally filled an examination required under the examination requirement, that is chosen course of study. So you see the terms are not injected properly here. I'm going to try to run this again now with a different setup because we need the term injection, because otherwise I'm going to show you what you need to do. Finally, at a degree, and this is why it's going to be high touch. I mean, it's cool that Memsource will give you the automatic suggestion, or if the applicant and C degree, so I can auto inject it here, so that's okay, but it would still be nicer if this was done and I wouldn't have to do it manually. I think you get the issue, so that's like the high touch problem here. The actual MT output is good enough. It's just a problem is the terminology here. Under the examinations chosen at a university, and you see we want university, we want it to be higher education institution because there's several types of education institutions in Germany within the scope of the basic law, which we have not defined, but this should be okay, but you would still have to manually validate if this is the actual English translation of the Grundgesetz. Okay. So now you see that's like where you need to touch the machine translation, right? And what's the actual effort for the translator, and where the MT can add value. So I'm here using a trained MT. So this MT actually knows my translation style. Let's try it with a more general one. But this time, let's hope the terms get injected. So confirm. I'm going to go back to the main screen, close this one. So I'm going to delete all translations, delete translations. I am going to change the settings for the MT engine. I'm going to change the MT engine here. So instead of my own Google AutoML, which is, maybe I can quickly show you. Yeah, see, look, I have to kind of do my own, I have to kind of connect my own tool here. What I can do now is I will just use Google Translate, general. Oh, I can even use two. That's cool. Ah, okay, because but it should still use my glossary. Sorry, I'm getting lost in the features here. Google Translate. I got Google Translate running. Okay. Back to list. Tab. I'm going to refresh this just to make sure. So for all of you who don't use a cloud tool, this is pretty handy, right? Because you have the MT and TM and everything here in the cloud, and you can share it with various translators. So let's try to run this again. I have now a different MT engine running in the background. Edit, analyze, pre-translate. Pre-translate were empty. Pre-translate from machine translation. Pre-translate. Okay, let's try it again. So let's check the term injection now. And you see up here, I have a term base attached, I have a TM, but I do not have an MT. Just for information, the TB entries that you see down here is pulled from the term base that I attached here. This is a kind of a thing in Memsource, which is not yet implemented. Like I have a term base running here. This is attached to the project, but in my Memsource Translate, I have to clone this term base as a glossary. So I copy the whole file, and it only pulls the terms and not like the metadata. So these are actually not the same version. If I change something here in the term base, it's not going to be automatically in my Memsource Translate, so I need to kind of sync this manually. Anyhow, let's look at a random sentence here. Students who have not submitted admission to all graded examinations, regulations section, paragraph 3 of the first semester. So here I want Fachsemester to be program semester. This is what I defined, right? So it's not being injected here. Registered paragraph 11 to lose the right to take the examination unless the student can prove that she is not responsible for the failure. Blah, blah. I'm not going to go into the details, but maybe let's just check if this fairly complicated sentence was translated okay. Students who have not submitted an application for admission to all graded examinations required by these examinations according to section blah, 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 of the first semester. Yeah, see, so this is graded examinations of the first semester required by these examiners, blah, blah, blah. So there was a syntactical issue. Otherwise, of course, there's the terminology where I have different preferences. Section by the end of the third semester or who have not registered lose the right to take the examination unless the students can prove that he, she, so I would like to have they. So these are all preferences not responsible for the failure. And here's like one which is not glossary terminology, this omission or whatever, yeah. Or they are not at fault, or whatever. So yeah, the MT output is more or less okay. Main issue, again, injecting the right terminology. You see the section is not translated consistently. Paragraph, I would like to have para. Study semester, program semesters. Again, you see the main issue. It's not that much like post-editing, but manual validation. Here is a good example. Withdrawal. Again, terms are not injected. It must be a technical issue because I have seen it work before. Main problem here, impersonal administrative language. So here we're not clear who has to do what in this sentence. If a deregistration occurs after admission, the registration is considered not to have taken place. So this is a major issue. If a student withdraws their registration after admission, the registration is not the, how do you say, it's not the theme of this sentence. The student is. The student is considered to never have registered. That's what it's trying to say. This is a main issue, and it occurs all the time because of impersonal wording. There's several ways to describe it. You can say there is no agent in the sentence, or there's no theme. I don't know. There's a lot of ways to look at this linguistically, I guess, but it leads to the issue that you read this thing and you don't know who has to do what. And this issue is inherited from the German. You can only infer it from like logically saying the Abmeldung, like withdrawing the registration. Okay, that's a student's duty. So it's implicit, but it's not explicit in the sentence who is actually acting. Okay, so here you see again the very simple sentence, the master's examination, and now I will again have to manually inject these terms, consists of midterm, see I have a different preference, midterm exams. And that's the whole issue here. If there is no term base attached, and this happens a lot, like if you don't have a good term base, you're going to have to do a lot of manual researching and finding out what these kind of examinations are actually called. In this case, I just only have to do it manually, but there are ways to do it automated, and I think that is where the main benefit lies. Okay, I want to now try something different. I want to delete all the translations again. I'm just going to compare the translations. You already saw there's no major benefit. I have just tried out a custom MT that I trained myself. Actually costs quite a bit. It's not cheap to train MT models. And I have tried Google's like free MT, and there is no big quality difference in the ways they interpret complicated sentences. The main issue is term injection or term adaptation, and this is the stuff that causes me a lot of manual work, in addition to like finding syntactical errors and stuff, which of course you'll always have in MT post editing. Again, deleting all the translations, and now I'm going to edit the project settings, because I want to completely change the machine translation engine. Okay, loading. This unit test glossary disable change. So I have 1 second. Okay, now I'm going to try this again with DeepL. I'm going to use DeepL. This is not Memsource Translate. This is my own DeepL account. And I'm going to try their API and see if it gives me any better results. But in this case, there is no terminology injection, but we can look at the general quality. I can only hook up my own term base and adapt the terms manually. So let's run a pre-translation. In this case, I'm using now DeepL, Machine Translation Engine. Pre-translate were empty, pseudo-translate were empty. So pre-translate were empty. From machine translation, pre-translate, I'm now getting DeepL translations, which is like the most powerful engine, especially for the language combination German to English. So let's try this out and have a quick look at the results, and like just see superficially at the language quality. So you see here it's pretty much the same output. Students should be qualified to develop these themselves and use them beneficially in the analysis and solution of strategic problems in national and international practice. So you see again, it's a similar, these skills. You see again, no context sensitivity. It doesn't understand that this is it a pronoun? These refers to the skills mentioned in this previous paragraph. Students should be qualified or are to be qualified themselves and use them beneficially, productive. Again, different term preference. And here, if an applicant has definitely failed an examination required by examination regulations at a higher education institution. So here it's actually using my term. I don't know why. This is cool. In the area of application of the basic law in the chosen degree program, or has lost the examination entitlement for another reason. Enrollment is excluded, so same issue as in the other MTs, human touch required, because bad wording in source. If an applicant has definitely failed in higher education area of the basic law, let's look at some other stuff. Courses of study, so again, it's not... You see the sentences are more or less the same. Degree program, I'll just have to do manual injection. A considerable proximity in terms of content to the previous. So here the wording is very literal. So it's not very nicely formulated. This will be an NEMT engine. Yeah, this is a good example. Eine erhebliche inhaltliche Nähe zu den bisherigen Studiengang. So what they mean is like the contents are very similar. The MT cannot make this transition. So this applies whose content is or has substantial similarities with the previous degree, with the previous degree program. But no, MT DeepL is not better than other NT engines in this respect, right? So this requires some touch. The Board of Examiners, Examination Board, again, manual replacement, decides on the significant, decides about, significant, substantial, decides what constitutes substantial similarities or something, yeah. So this is something you will have to do, otherwise it's going to be not readable. Okay, so I think you get the point. I've tried different MT engines. I have tried my own trained Google Custom MT. I have tried DeepL. I have tried the untrained Google. And what really makes me faster, especially when I have a large term base, as I do here, I have like over 700 terms in it, so that's pretty powerful if it's leveraged appropriately. If I have this running, this is a pretty cool thing. But okay, so this is why it wasn't injected. There's some kind of glossary error. I think Memsource is really going in the right direction by kind of offering this feature within the CAT tool. I mean, DeepL is offering something similar, but in their own translation interface, but it's very hard to maintain the glossary there. But there's still some work to be done. I think it can really save us a lot of effort. And to be very honest, I think it does not really matter what kind of MT you use, because there's a lot of hype right now about like custom MT and training your own models and so on. I think all MTs are good, but you need to run your own rules over them, and you still need some manual editing and maybe invest some time, especially here in this case. It would really make sense to train the authors to always include an agent and make their sentences more explicit, because this occurs quite a lot. And if you have like these repetitive text templates that they use for these regulation documents, and if they were written better, it would really reduce the human effort. So there's a lot of other things you can do really to improve MT output. And yeah, I hope this video was helpful. I hope to do this with other tools in the future and try new features. And thanks for watching. If you have any comments or would like to add something, please post below. Thanks.